before I get really started, the one thing I pray for today is I hope there's a newcomer here, and you just don't know how thankful I am that you raised your hand and said, this is your first AA meeting, because now I am at ease, okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you. You may not hear or remember one thing I've said, which is fine, but you're here. You're here for me. That's the way I'm going to look at it. I want to kind of tell you, I've never given my story. This is my story. And I've been thinking in the last 2 weeks why I've never given my story. Well, number one, maybe nobody ever asked. Number two, I only came down here to call bingo on New Year's Eve. And number three, it's very, very personal. This is a very personal thing for me. I love AA. I love to pass it on. But when I know how people give their story, you go back and you talk about what happened. And when I talked to a friend of mine and I said, I don't live in my drunk-a-log anymore. I don't want to do that. I'm going to move on into the middle. She goes, you have to, what's the word? Qualify. You got to qualify yourself for the program. And I was like, damn it, they always have the right answers here. So I have to do it the right way, because what I learned a long time ago is crazy people change the rules so they can win, and I don't have to do that anymore. Amen. One of my favorite sayings. But I just want you to know that everything I talk about here, what I've learned here, I had nothing to do with it. I only learned this because of the people who went before me. These are not my ideas. They're not the way I wrote a book. They're nothing to do with me. And one of my favorite things to say today is those claps are for, that you just gave me, that you'll give me at the end. They're not for me. They are for my higher power. They are for my sponsors. They are for the people who came to see me all the time, who reached out and go, we don't want you to die. Now, can you do what we ask you to do? Can we pick you up, take you to a meeting? Can we do this? Can we do that? Here's a Diet Coke. You're going to be okay. Now get in the car and go to a meeting. Get in the car. Bring all those cookies with you. And I said, why? She goes, because that's what we do on birthday night. I took all these cookies and I'm going to birthday night. I had no idea what I was doing, why, where, when. I did what they told me. So my story is what I call old-fashioned AA, because I'm old. We'll get to my age in a minute. But I just wanted to clarify that. Good evening, everybody.
Who are you?
My name is Byars, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. And my home group is Circle 12. We meet on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night at 7 o'clock. We're a book study meeting, and we're still on Zoom, so if anybody would like to join our group, I have the Zoom numbers with me. But that was my very first group I ever attended. I've gone to a lot of other meetings, but I was taught early on about accountability, and I've heard that word 3 times this week. One time was from a newcomer here, and I thought, well, I guess I need to continue to be accountable. I use the present participle on recovering because that's what I am. I have a disease that's ever changing. My disease is not cured. I'm not cured. You're going to find out that I'm just doing pretty good. That's about it. And so I'm a recovering alcoholic who today will work a program when sometimes life gets too hard. You know, I'll really work a program. But right now, I'm 63 and a half years old. I've never given my story. My first sobriety day was 1996, when I was 37 years old. I found it necessary to drink again, just for a day. My husband says, but she only drank a day. That's not how it works, okay? But I find it very important that today I get to say my sobriety date this time is this, because somebody needs to know that. They need to know you can drink again. You may not come back. You may come back. But in December 9th, 1998 is my last sobriety date. That's what I'm called when I was separated from alcohol. I certainly was not sober. I certainly was not working a program. They took away my alcohol, and I continued to live like that for a while. Okay. I have to tell you what happened. I was born in Tyler, Texas. It's not going to be that long in detail. That's when I thought, this is going to go by fast. Okay. I grew up in a very big, large home with a lot of people. My grandmother ran the home, even though I had parents. She collected people just like she collected things. Okay, so I was around all kinds of people. One of my first memories of being grandiose is we had a great big dining room table. My sister and I shared the same birthday month. Half of the table, I'm thinking like 12 feet was presents for me. The other 12 was for my sister. I'm not bragging. I'm telling you that we grew up in extreme, okay? Lots of people, lots of parties, lots of this, lots of yelling, lots of arguing. And we survived. That's how we knew our life, okay? I had an aunt that was an adopted aunt. Like I said, my grandmother collected people. She was the first time I ever saw somebody drunk, and I didn't know what it was. She was coming up the stairs, and I remember telling my parents, she looked crazy, and it scared me. So what I got to see here was fear. I grew up in a lot of fear, a lot of unknown things, a lot of ambulance that would come pick her up, take her right up here to when she was at Mother Francis. They would sober her up in one of the little ER rooms and send her back home. So that was my first experience with alcoholism. Okay, so I grew up, everything was good. My grandmother made wine. We had a liquor cabinet. We drank wine with spaghetti. We did this. I did not see excess at this point that I remember. So we moved me on to college. Okay, this little Tyler girl goes to the University of Texas. The only reason I went there in Austin is because my sister was already there. Now guess who got outstanding pledge? It had nothing to do with grades. Okay, we'll leave it at that. This is when my drinking accelerated. This is when I saw what alcohol could do for me. It made me fabulous. Okay, I remember. I'm only going to tell you 3 college stories. That's all we need to know. I'm at a party and I'm drinking bourbon and Coke, and I remember talking with my eyes shut. I was not in a blackout, but the next day I thought, oh, that's right, I'm allergic to corn. Bourbon is corn whiskey. I shouldn't be drinking bourbon. I should be drinking rum and Coke. So I switched to all kinds of liquor, but I never went back to bourbon because I was allergic to it. Okay? So we would go to parties. We did this. One day my sister comes to my dorm room and said, I'm concerned about you. You drink just for no reason at all. I think you're an alcoholic. Now, my sister doesn't remember this story, but I do. And I don't know why I still remember it, but for some reason I do. We didn't know what alcoholics were. We were in high school, college. We were having fun. But I still think about that. 3 years later, I was brought home by my parents. Okay? I went to the doctor. I was severely depressed, everything else. My father said, what is wrong with our daughter? He said, she's had a nervous breakdown. Now, we all know that nervous breakdown came from alcohol-related whatever. You know, I had a very fast heart rate all the time, this, that. That's where I got to see the physical. When I went back working these steps, I could see the physical part of this disease. And sometimes if you go to meetings, you hear me talk about, we have a disease, okay? And that's why I get to say, yeah, I had a disease, and it is a miracle that I did not die while I was in college. When I came home. I come home to Tyler. I'm working in a restaurant. A lot of you all were bartenders in restaurants. I dated the bartender. Thank you. I was always close to wherever the alcohol was. This restaurant's not here anymore. It was Pelican. I don't know if we have anybody that old that was there. Okay. David, the Pelican. It's not here anymore, but I was there and I loved every minute of work there. I don't know how I didn't die working there. But then I was going to college also. My family started a family business that I eventually worked in. And I'm going to digress. This is not my brother's story, but he plays a big part in my story, one of my brothers. There are 5 children. I'll refer to him as my dead brother. He was in high school, and they diagnosed him alcoholic. And so, what does he do? He starts coming to Lake Street. He's going to AA meetings. Who did he meet here? Francis. I knew him, who's still here, and Art met him. And I tell you this, I digress to him because what's very important to me is my brother didn't finish in AA at all. He went to a school in Oklahoma, and Art was a traveling salesman. And Art would go up to Oklahoma on his way and eat at the restaurant where my brother worked. And all I can think of is, that's what I learned here, is you go check on people when you can. And they checked on my brother. My brother came back home, worked in the psychiatric hospital that was Behavioral Health Center that is now closed, one of my favorite places. And I digress to that because I'm sitting in a meeting over here one day, and a young lady passes a note to me and said, I was in the behavioral health clinic and your brother helped me, and if I can ever help you, let me know. And I thought, what a deal, what a deal. My brother died. He died an early death. He died of AIDS and alcohol-related illness. One of the first diagnoses, probably wasn't the first, but it was very early on. He's been dead probably 30 years. But I was left with anger, rage, horrible grief. I tell you this story about him because I was the only one that found it necessary to drink at his funeral in a church. And when I walked out of that church, I still remember. It doesn't matter to me what church I was in, but I walked out and thought, I do not need God anymore. I wasn't mad at God. I had alcohol. That's the only thing I needed. So that's when I realized that this will take care of me, is alcohol. And I continued to drink heavily. His partner died 18 months later. And we were able to take care of him because he had no family. And I remember I'm going to tell you this, hospice comes in and goes, you know, you can attend our grief therapy. And I thought, oh, I don't need grief therapy. I have alcohol, plus I had all of his pills that he had. And it's just, you know, that's what I got to do. I continued to drink and drink and drink. And so I pushed away all this anger, grief, rage, until the alcohol quit working. And even when I drank, I was angry, rageful, and full of grief. The alcohol had quit working, and I became stark, raving alcoholic who continued to get up and go to work. And so my parents sent me to another psychiatrist. And I went, and all I can think of is when they have you fill out those forms and you go, what are your hobbies? And I put drinking, dancing, and reading magazines. You would have thought they would come to me and said, girl, you might have a problem. But they didn't. I mean, those were my hobbies. So I get to a psychiatrist, but I'm not doing well. Like I said, the alcohol quit working. And one of my major last drunk at that point, I'm at work, and I'm in a family-run business. We have a lot of employees. We do a lot of social work, all kinds of work, and I'm over here acting absolutely crazy, insane. And we had done a party with the little bottles of liquor, and it was brandy, and I start pouring brandy into my Diet Cokes. And I am drinking all this, and it's 10:30 in the morning, and I am up in the office crying and drunk. And what does my mother do? Like any good parent, she calls a psychiatrist and puts me on the phone to talk to him. And so the next day I see him and I said, what is wrong with me? He goes, oh my goodness, you're an alcoholic. And I said, well, what do I do? Which psychiatrists never do this. Well, you need to go to an AA meeting. And I found out later with Byars, he saved your life. I said, well, how do I find one? He came in with that old-fashioned newspaper, put it down. He goes, here, find it in the back. You need to go on to Circle 12. They meet up at the hospital. Now, you think I went to Circle 12 the next day? No. I left that office and I remember I wrote down, because this is so sad, and I wrote down, God help me now, I will never have fun again. I'm thinking, what was I, this 6-year-old driving going, I will never have fun again, because I'm alcoholic. So I continued to get up, go to work, but at that point I stopped drinking, and guess what? Things got worse. They got horrible. I was separated from alcohol. I was not sober. I wasn't working a program. I was just there, existing. And so I waited a long time. There's a young lady here that was working back here in Tyler, and I looked at her and said, "Do you think I'm alcoholic?" She goes, "Maybe so." I said, I knew she went to meetings. She took me to some of them. She didn't go with me to my first meeting. I went on up to Circle 12 at the hospital, and but she took me to a lot of different meetings. She's the one that she goes, "Bring these cookies, it's birthday night." I didn't know what that meant, but by God, I'm going to bring cookies, you know. And we hung out together. Going to these meetings, I met a lot of people, people who cared enough that when they knew I was having a bad day would come over and sit in our restaurant and talk to me and explain to me about God and that pipeline to God. I had no idea what they were saying. I'm going to show you, because I brought my toolkit with me. They taught me to have a toolkit, and but they never stopped coming to take care of me and to reach out to me. I'd come here to Lake Street, and I'm going to name drop because these are important names to my story. These are important names to a lot of people here. I'm in here probably crying and complaining. That's all I did. I cried, complained, and poor, pitiful me. Olin, who passed away recently, looked at me one day when we were leaving the meeting. He goes, "You need to read this. It's a book about resentment." He goes, "You need to read this, and you also need to get a sponsor." I thanked him and moved on. But I did read that book, and I came to love the word resentment because he was showing me how to begin to heal myself. Resentment comes from the Latin word resentire, which means to refill. So when I resent something, all I'm doing is it's going over and over and over. And how bad do you want to hurt, Byars? How bad do you want to hurt? There was another man in here, Paul. He goes, "I hope you make it, because my daughter didn't." And I knew his daughter. I didn't know she died of this disease. And he goes, "You need to get a sponsor." And I was like, I don't want a sponsor. 8 months later into this program, and what I'll tell you this is I had this written down. It was 8 months before I got a sponsor. And that was probably 8 of the worst months of anybody's life that lived with me, that was around me. And the first thing my sponsor said was, what you need to do, especially when you're at Lake Street, is, you know, when you stand back there by that door, that's where I stood, back there by the door under the flag. You need to come all the way in the room, and maybe let's sit up in the middle. I'll meet you there and we'll sit in the middle of the room. I stood back there at that door. Now the lady who wanted to call bingo stood at that door for a long time. I wouldn't come in the room, okay? She goes, "You come all the way in." She started me reading in the big book. I couldn't understand a thing we read. I was not well. I still was not well. They told me at Circle 12, we affect a minimum of 18 people. Now this was back then. I thought, oh, I did not. I'm not married. I don't have children. I live alone. I couldn't have affected anybody. Well, you're going to see how many people I affected. Not that I counted them, but but that's very important to me because I think about that. Just how many people the minimum that we affect that we don't know about. This self-centered, sick alcoholic. Okay, so I'm with my first sponsor, and we go to the anniversary. And my favorite thing is what we read. So I'm standing there and I listen, and from the stage they're reading, "Rarely have we seen a person fail." And I thought, that is the most beautiful statement, poem I've ever heard. Where did they find this? I'd like a copy. And he told me, We read that at every meeting. It's in chapter 5 of the big book. And that's when I thought, I wonder what I do when I'm at these meetings. Because this is the sad part of my life. I was always there. Did I come in that late? I had no idea that was in chapter 5 of the big book. So what did I do? I bought it. I bought it because I love it. And I started, that's when I bought this and really started reading this, I realized how many times honesty was in this. This is what it took for me to realize I was a very dishonest person. This woman who worked in a wonderful company and all this, I was so dishonest, it was very, very sad. So we get through that. I was still angry, raging. It was bad. And then, in the big book, when they talk, Bill goes, things got worse. It got worse. My father said we liked her better when she drank because I didn't talk. Right after that, I got fired. Remember, it's a family-owned business. I got fired and was sent home. Okay, they took away all my keys, like that mattered, but they took away all my keys. They sent me home. They didn't know what to do with me. But you know what I did when I got fired and went home and I'm sitting there by myself? I did steps 4, 5, and 6. I had my sponsor come over and we did those steps. And I did them. The first time I did them, I will tell you this, I did them out of the 12 and 12 because that's the way she was learned. She was taught to do them. That's how I did them the first time. And you know what? I've got the first relief I'd ever gotten. The relief came when I shared with her. When I shared with her and I was not embarrassed, and that's what it was all about for me, is how it works. When I got that relief, I thought, I may be okay. Till I realized nobody came to see me except the one lady who brought me Diet Cokes. Now, I was dating a man who, they told me he's afraid to come see you because you're so loud. That man, I did marry him. He saw me at the worst part of my life. He's been with me. Marriage is a whole nother story. We don't do well in relationships. That's not going to be part of my story tonight, because what's part of my story tonight are these steps and what they did for me. If I worked the traditions, I'm much better. But the steps are what keep me sober. The traditions keep us all together. And I learned that here. I learned that from listening to speakers. I learned that from listening to tapes. That night that I had done that first, 4th, 5th, and 6th step, I came here to a meeting and an old timer here looked at me and goes, "You look different. You've done some step work." They could see the relief in me. He could see she's smiling. She didn't come in here I wasn't in the back door. I was up here up front. And to me, I still remember that. We don't remember. I can't remember anybody's names. Y'all know that I have a terrible time with names. But I remember these events that kept me sober. The insanity came back. Maybe because if you don't keep practicing the steps on a daily basis, the insanity will return. So I met with my sponsor. I said, now something is really, really wrong with me. I need to see you. I've gone crazy. I may need to go be hospitalized in Rusk, and I need you to bring your sponsor with you. No, that's how bad off I was. So she goes, well, okay. So they came, met me at the restaurant, and they listened to me, and what did her sponsor tell me? Don't ever call yourself crazy. You're a sick person trying to get better. You are not crazy. She goes, now pick up your 12 and 12. I said, okay. She goes, turn to page 90. I did. She goes, now read that. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. I hated her. She made me read the whole thing. She goes, now Byars, go get me some supper, please. And but those 2 pages brought me in. Once again, these books saved my life. they talk about these emotional dry benders, this, and this. If you don't have a 12 and 12, get one. Go to that page, 90, 91. Just by her saying that, by her being there with me, taking the time to work with somebody who knew to ask for help today instead of not asking for help, I still think about her all the time and saw her recently, and it was just like seeing just the most fabulous person. And I'm so grateful for that. Once again, it is only because the people who came before me that I'm alive. Because, you know, when I look back on this, I should be dead. Nobody can drink that much and have that much physical illness and then, you know, go to work and work. I drank it 18 months. And I have to tell you that because I was so angry. And I drank when I can look back and see what happened to me, the anger, the rage, the resentment, they were all still there. Yes, I like to say I drank over pecan tarts. Yes, John, they were actually pecan tassies, which has a different dough. It's a cream cheese dough, which makes it softer. So when you roll it out, it's hard to get back into the little pans. You did ask me that one day. I was so angry because they were very hard to make. It was a horrible experience. But what did I do? I reached for this huge carafe of wine that was sitting in a refrigerator, and I drank the entire thing. And you know what happened then? I didn't say another word. Never talked again. My mother went up, called an old timer that she knew. They came pick me up. They brought me right here to Lake Street, and I went to a meeting. That is the miracle. My sponsor met me later. She took me to her house, fed me supper, took me to another meeting. Because they didn't want me to die. This disease will kill you. And they didn't want me to die. They saw somebody who was struggling so hard, who wouldn't do what was asked of us. But I was doing the best I could. And the first message on my machine was from somebody here who said, if there's anything we can do for you, call me and let me know. That's when we still had old phones, black cord fever, and answering machines. And you know what? What I did is I went back to meetings, but I didn't speak for an entire year, which was absolutely ridiculous. You know, I beat myself up way too long. I did finally start listening, but I wouldn't speak at a meeting and I wouldn't get another chip. That is one thing I want to tell you about those chips. When I'm at one of my first meetings, I've been there 30 days, and so you get that 30-day chip. And the first thing I tell them, well, I don't want a chip that will make me an alcoholic. And somebody sitting right there, she explained to me what the chips meant. And I was like, thank you, okay. So I did take that chip. And but that's how I thought. That's how we think when we get here. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You all may have come in. It may have been a lot easier for you. Anything I could have done, I was going to make it much harder for me and my family. But when I want to tell you, that's what I learned the word powerlessness is when I drank. I realized that's what it took for me to understand being powerless over alcohol. I could not stop drinking that wine, and everything it did for me, it fixed me. I was powerless over the first drink, over a whole carafe of wine. That's what it took for me. That's what I get to share with people today. Also, I was sponsoring a lady, and she calls me in the middle of the night, and she's going to take all these pills and drink. So I go to her house, and I open the door, and she goes, whatever you do, it doesn't matter what you do, I'm going to take all these pills. And that's what it took for me. I continued to stay with her, but I thought, no human power can relieve us of our alcoholism. And I stayed with her. We worked together. She did die probably 6 months later of an overdose. And so it's a chronic disease. No human power can relieve us of our alcoholism. That's the way I learned, was through experience. And when I had these experiences, we put them in to show me in the steps. This is what's work. This is what this means. I'm not that smart. This is what it took for me to understand what I was doing. At this point, I had a different sponsor. We worked those steps again. This time I worked them out of the big book. just like it says. I'd never seen the steps listed in the big book. Have y'all? They're in there. They're in there. And I'm not showing off with this book, but this is the big book. This is my study big book. I have a lot of big books, but this is my study big book. And what happened was, my favorite chapters are how it works, and it's all torn up, but I had to bring it because I love it. This is the book that I hold up some days, just walk around with it. I want to talk about amends because I forgot to tell you this, but one of my last drinking escapades in my home, I was drinking by myself, and I thought, I'll just be an alcoholic and just go to those meetings if that's what it takes. But I'll tell you this, now I don't know who I'm talking to, there's nobody there but me. I will never do that step, that one step where you have to go back and apologize to people. I will never do that, because if I said it or did it, I meant it. And that's how I believe. So when I got in here, I'm like, oh, where is that step? Okay, right here. I'm not going to do that one. I might do some of these, But that's not how they told me to do it. So I have to tell you how important amends are to me and to my sobriety, because I have to have them. I had to do them. And my sponsor said, this is what we're going to do. And I had to write a script out. Not that I had to read from a script. I didn't mail it to the people. I had to make direct amends wherever possible, just like it said. Living amends, you should have been doing that all your life, but I had to make those direct amends. So I wrote it out, and at the top of each page I put, I will never get over drinking until I straighten out my past. That was at the top, and I read these to these people. I do want to tell you some of the amends I had to make. This is what happened to me. These amends happened when I quit drinking. To me, that is a sad part of my story. That I was so sick when I didn't have the alcohol that I was worse almost than I was when I drank. I had to make amends to the president of the university because of our business. I had to make direct amends to to a president. I had to make direct amends to the owner of a bed and breakfast, because when someone writes your company a 3-page letter and tells you how horrible one employee is, you have to go back and make things right. I had to make amends to a state representative. This one is even sadder too. I had to make amends to a truck driver. Okay, so I'm at a party, and we're in the food business. And this fella comes over to me. It's a Halloween party at someone's house. We're outside, a great big party. He looked at me and goes, well, hello. And I said, well, hello. And I recognized him as a driver for a food service truck. He goes, nobody likes to deliver to your company. And I was like, are you talking to me? And I said, really? He goes, you're so mean. You're so mean, you're angry, and you just treat people bad. And I was like, oh my God. You talk about somebody who went and sat in a truck at the end of the driveway and thought, oh my. I did tell him I am very, very sorry. But I thank that man for telling me that. I needed to know that. And so today, whenever I see anybody driving a truck or anybody doing anything, I have the maturity to say, how's your day? Can I help you? What can I do for you? Because I don't ever want somebody to have to tell me that again. I made amends to a man recently in the last 3 years who played a big role in with the AIDS community here. Now, he was a priest for the community, and I yelled at a priest, okay? I yelled at a priest and told him terrible things. And I thought, I'll never see him again. It doesn't matter, And So I'm at work one day and they go, you have a client, there's somebody up at the top that needs to talk to you. So I'm out there showing the lady needed, this is the second job I have. No, I did finish up with that first job. They let me come back to work. We sold our company, we moved forward. I'm in the sales department now of a countertop company. So I'm helping a lady, and I said, "Is that your husband? Would you like to bring him up here and we'll show him this color?" And she said, "No, it won't matter." So we go down and I talk to him. He turns and he looks at me and goes, "Hello, I'm Tom." And I was like, "Oh my God, your father Tom." I can say that he has passed away, but and I started crying, just downright tears poured out of me. I said, "Oh my God, I owe you amends. I owe you amends." I kept saying that. And he just held my hands. And I said, "Please come over here." We're outside standing and I'm just shaking and crying and going, "Sir, I am so sorry. I yelled at you." It could have been 25, 30 years ago. But it was like it was yesterday, just the emotion that happened to me. And he looked at me and he goes, "It's okay." And he hugged me and he held my hands. We said a little prayer. And he goes, "It's okay." And he said the kindest words to me. Then he went and sat in his car. And his wife looked at me and she goes, "He has dementia. But what you just did is you've made his day." And I thought, no, what God has done for me is made my day, made my week, made my life. I got in the car and I cried and cried because the relief of these emotions. I called my sponsor to tell her. And amends are very, very important. Because I go back to that, I will never get over drinking until I straighten out my past. And God gave me another opportunity to straighten out my past. And the biggest amends I got to make were to my parents. Very, very hard. Very hard. I had their letter written out. I prayed about it. We put it off. I put it off. What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? It's not that big of a deal, you know? It's just what I created in my mind. And so they're sitting at a table at their home. And I said, "I need to talk to you." And they probably, I don't know what they thought at the beginning. But I started reading that, and they were both, my father ended up with Parkinson's, and they both lived a long, long life. They held on. But they were both in their right minds. And I made direct amends to them. And then I cried and cried and cried, and my mother looked at me and she goes, "You're very courageous." And what a thing. The beautiful part about that story is I never had to remake amends to my parents. Because of this program, I realized when things got heated, when this happened, the anger, the this, I knew to step back and say, "Just 1 minute, let me pull something out of my toolbox." It takes two to fight. If I don't fight, there is no fight. Number 2, you might be right. I'll get back with you on that. And listen, he only has nice things to say about you. This is an old note that I carried in my pocket for a long, long time. And I still have to think about it takes 2 to fight. If I walk away, there is no fight. So because of this program, because somebody passed this on to me, I never really had to remake amends to 2 of the most important people in my life. That is a miracle. I had nothing to do with that. I forgot to tell you, I came from a family that doesn't throw anything away. So, hello, it's in my toolkit. And when I went back and started looking at these, my archives, I just thought, I have come a long way. No, I can still fight. I can still get into an argument with my family, but I don't have to because I have the tools. When I decide to pick up the right tools, my life is so much better. But that's why I have to talk about amends, because to me the amends, I've made a lot of amends. I went back in my books And I realized, yeah, there's still more to make. But today we'll be out. I don't have to run from people most of the time. I can be out and be okay. And if I run into somebody that I do owe amends to, I have to make direct amends wherever possible. I want to talk to you about the God winks that have happened in my life. I didn't know what these meant, but the synchronicity of good things, you might be there, you might not. This is what has kept me sober. This is what I was told to look for because I was so angry. And you got to be grateful, Byars. Let's look for some gratitude. Write down things to be grateful for. So, remember the man I had to make amends to that owned the bed and breakfast? Okay, the 3-page letter that, okay. The night that party happened was a very, very busy night in Tyler, Texas. We were in the middle of several parties. After I was sent home from his bed and breakfast, I went to our facility. The first thing I did is go in there and I started throwing things. Then I thought, I will drink. I went up the stairs. I was on my way up those stairs to where we keep the liquor, and all of a sudden that back door flew open. And there was David M., who happens to be here tonight. He came in, and I was like, why are you here? He goes, I was checking on y'all because I knew you were busy. Plus he's probably driving by, going to get a Coke. And, but that to me is a God wink. He came in, I'm on my way to go drink up in our, and I didn't have to drink because somebody thought about, let me go check on somebody in this program. Okay? My other favorite one is I'm at work. It's a Valentine's Day, and I went home sick early that morning. And a friend who was in this program but had died because of this. I've seen a lot of death in this program, and it just reminds you of what can happen. He was going to buy, this was a long time ago, he was going to buy a Krispy Kreme donut franchise, okay? So he had a sample box of Krispy Kreme donuts, and he brought them to our office, and he goes, I brought these to Byars. I want her to see what she thinks, and you all taste these and see how they are. And they go, well, Byars isn't here, we'll just put them on her desk. She's gone home sick. And maybe 30 minutes later, the gal up front who worked our storefront was talking to a customer who came in, and she goes, oh, Vicki, I know you all do not make donuts, but by any chance do you have donuts here? Her husband was very sick. He was dying. He has been in this program. He was dying of liver failure. And all of a sudden Vicki goes, we have donuts. We have donuts on Byars' desk. And just a minute, she went back and got them, gave it to her. Her husband died that night, and his last meal was his favorite donut, a Krispy Kreme donut from California. And when I shared that story, this is what they told me. The best part of that story is I wasn't even there. I was not even there. Byars, you weren't there. Look at God working through you. You are the connector. You just happened to be, you weren't there. So that always reminds me is I happen to be here. I happen to be there. I happen to be where I need to be. See somebody. I was told early on by my sponsor, you call me every day. So I learned to call her every day, so when something happens where I need her, I'm tuned into that phone. So today I call people. Now we get to text. I will call people, check on them, how are you doing? It gets me out of my head, and I don't keep thinking about myself. I call other people. You give your phone number to people here tonight so somebody can get out of themselves and check on you. I'm not bossy, but being bossy can save a life. That's the way I look at it, and don't ever forget that. But one of my favorite God winks just happened recently. So I'm driving this friend around who doesn't drive at this point. And I ended up at more meetings than I've ever been to in my life. And I'm just worn out from going to AA meetings or talking to people and doing this and helping other people. We have to go up to the hospital and see an old friend and do this and do that. But I'd never been happier in my life. I've never laughed so much in my life. So one day I pick her up down here. She goes, our last talk was, we're going to Lake Street to meet somebody. Not Lake Street, we're going to Alpha to meet somebody. She got out of the doctor a little late. And so she goes, do you want to go to Lake Street? Because it's right here. I said, well, I have on all this makeup. We're going somewhere. So we come to Lake Street. I thought I hadn't been to a Lake Street meeting in a long time. We get here, we're walking. There's this lady we see in the parking lot who's her first meeting. We're like, oh my God, it's your first meeting. Come in, sit by me. You know, I had not been that happy in a long time. Sit by me. Sit by Lucy and Ethel, and you're going to have a good time. And what do I tell her at the end of the meeting? I said, now look, there's a meeting here tonight, Monday night at 8 o'clock. If you want to go, you call me and let me know, and I'll meet you there. 2 hours later, I thought, what newcomer is going to call me and tell me, oh, I want to go to your AA meeting? And so I thought, I can just go on to that 8 o'clock meeting. So I came down here to the 8 o'clock meeting. And who did I get to meet? The newcomer was here. But I met a whole new group of people that I needed to know, and who invited me to come here, and who let me call bingo. And then maybe the third Monday I'm here, none of those people were here. So my alcoholic thinking, they weren't here. There were 3 of them that sat over there. And I was like, well, where are they? Why aren't they here? Was it something I said? Was it something I did? My alcoholic thinking kicks in, and I made it all about me. Well, one of them worked an 18-hour day or whatever, couldn't get here. The other one, she was working out of town on Mondays. She couldn't be here. I can't remember what else. But I'm thinking, they left me. But you know what? They didn't leave me. I just kept coming to the meeting. I met all kinds of people here. This is where I needed to be. And that takes me back to the in-person meetings. Okay, I survived COVID barely, you know. Yeah. I'm on Zoom doing COVID, but 2 months into COVID, I'm not well. I'm just like, oh my God. I'd walk down the stairs of my house and go, I'm Byars, I'm an alcoholic, because I needed to remind myself there's nobody in my house, but I'm going to say it out loud because that's what I'm used to doing. I needed to be around people. The beautiful thing was my company that I worked for did not close, so I'm around people. I'm taking care of a psychiatrist one day, and I'm trying to tell that psychiatrist that I need to come up to the hospital and see people. They go, we don't do that right now. And I'm just like, you know, I'm thinking I'm chomping at the bit. And but I hooked up with some people, and it got better. But 2 years into COVID, I'm at work, and I realize I want to beat people up at work. Now, and this is true, and I can laugh, but when I was in the middle of this, it was a horrible situation. And I'm in my head, and I'd already got my team picked. I get him from over there because he's the biggest. He's on my team, and we're going to beat up these young people that do not show me any respect. And it was planned out. So I call my sponsor, and she goes, you might need to find an in-person meeting, you know, because she had already worked with me, and I didn't know what was happening. So I go, and they tell me about an alpha meeting at 3 o'clock. So I went there, and I shared this story, and the lady chairing the meeting had a very similar story, but she was putting sticky notes everywhere, beating people up with sticky notes. But me, I was getting ready, I'm going to have a fight with people. And that just shows you where my disease was taking me and how close I was getting to, I need to be back at in-person meetings. So I went there, I ended up back here. I'm still in Circle 12. I will always have a home group because of the word accountability, because I love it. At one point I changed jobs, and it was suggested to me to go to a different meeting, do something different. So I did. I started going to a different meeting. And my birthday's in December, and one of the old timers there called me, and he goes, okay, you need to come pick up your chip at your home group and you need to start coming back here. That's how it worked for me. They called to see where I was, what I was doing, and you need to come back here. They were looking for accountability. They wanted me in their rooms. They wanted me at their meetings. And that's what I needed. I needed to have a home group. I needed the accountability. I needed to be with the people who were showing me how to live. The notes in my book are all from the people who came before me. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you my toolkit. They told me to have a toolkit. So, hold on just a minute. There's my desire chip that I keep with me, okay? There's this chip. I just taped them on here because I do like show and tell. There's my chip for this year, okay? I like things, okay? So, when I got sober, how many of you all know what that is? I had a host, this is a cassette tape.
I still have a player for it.
I listen to these tapes all the time. This is what I listen to. Then we graduated to these tapes. That's the Big Book study. I got sober because the people I was with, they wanted to have study groups at their homes or at other places. We had book studies. We did Big Book studies. We did this. We read all kinds of literature that had to do with this program. Okay? That's what kept me sober. This right here. I keep an extra one. I think I'll pass to you. Power is in the pencil. Power is in the pen. That's what they taught me early on. Byars, get it out of your head, get it on paper. I still do that all the time. I can do a 4-step in the air sometimes. You know? Sometimes I have to because I am not well and I got to get it out of my head on paper and then share it with somebody. Okay? Now my sponsor got real tired of the same people showing up. She goes, what does this show us? You have the same people on here. Have they changed? No, ma'am. Do you think they ever will change? No, ma'am. Well, then who's going to change? I am. You know, we went through it, the same thing over and over. Here's my newcomer's packet, okay, when I first got there. Here's who was at my meeting: Charlie P., Bob C., Alan B., Dixie P., and Nelson. Nelson still comes to meetings, okay? The others have passed away. That to me is very important. Here is when David M. came over one day to my restaurant and tried to explain to me about God and that pipeline. And I was just sitting there at a 60-inch round table going, what in the world is he talking about? But there's the picture he drew for me. When my sponsor said, Byars, have you ever clocked in anywhere? No, I haven't. She goes, well, she made me a time card. There's the time card she made me. I talked about this the other night. It says, don't forget to clock in. Your manager wants to know you showed up, ready to take direction. Now, my manager was my higher power. So I had to physically clock in, okay? That is the only way I learned that I had to quit playing God. When that part comes back up and I start playing God, it's not a good day for anybody, especially my husband. Now that 4th step, can any of you, when you got here, could you read the 4th step in the Big Book? I still can't and read it out loud. It does not make any sense. She goes, okay, take a piece of paper. Fold it in half, then fold that in half. There's your 4 columns. Oh, now start writing. That just reminds me, let's simplify that 4th step for someone like me. It's that simple. It just was sitting down and doing it. How bad did I want to hurt? How much more pain did I want to feel? Here is my Circle 12 phone list. We do have phone lists. I still like paper. Paper saved my life. I get in here and I complain the whole time. I want the promises. I heard about those promises. I knew I wanted them. When will I get them? I'm tired. I'm tired of being angry. I want to be happy, joyous, and free. They brought to my attention, Byars, when did the promises come? Could you call me back and let me know where they find the promises in the Big Book? When do they come? The 9th step. What step are you on, Byars? Oh, I'll call you later. Well, I wanted those promises so bad, I did go and buy the promises. Because didn't want to work for anything when I first got here. I bought the promises, but you know what? I look at them every morning when I'm taking my vitamins and go, oh my God, I love the promises. You know, what a deal. What a deal that this is what I get. And that's what I get. I get a toolkit. These are in my toolkit. They told me at a Jan Street meeting, the doors were locked a long time ago, and I'm sitting outside with two people I didn't know. And I looked at them and said, how am I going to do this? He goes, you're going to go to meetings, you're going to read the big book, you're going to work those steps, you're going to get a sponsor, work with others. That's how I learned that, sitting outside of a meeting that wasn't open. This program saved my life. This program is a miracle. Like I said, there's not one thing I did here. It was by the grace of God, a word I learned when I got here. Because of the people in the program loved this program, they taught me how to love the program. And I want to close with, this was in my morning read meditation today. Yes, I get to pray every morning and ask, you know, when we say, some people say, oh, I never think about drinking. Well, I do. I think about drinking every morning when I say my prayers. God, keep me sober today. Don't let anything happen that you and I cannot handle together. That's my prayer. It may not have been anybody else's prayer, but that's my prayer. It reminds me that I'm an alcoholic and that I don't want to drink today because I don't want to die. But this little prayer kept talking about grace, and it is the grace of God that I'm here. And this prayer gave me hope because I kept thinking, why didn't I get my story? Because I don't want to go back and look at it. I don't want to look at what I did and what happened and who I hurt. So this is what it says. You can look back, but with your burden lifted by forgiving grace, it is good to look back and celebrate the rescue of grace. It is good to mourn the past. It is not good to be paralyzed in it. Grace lives at the intersection between clarity of sight and hope for the future. And that grace is ours for the taking. I don't want to rewrite my past, making myself look more righteous than I really was. I can share the truth in the face because of this program and the people in it, what it has done for me. I can own what needs to be owned and confess what needed to be confessed. So, today, only because of this program and the people in it, I get to look backward and I get to look forward because of God's grace has enabled me to do both. And thank you all.